Hi guys, this is Kimberly. Thanks so much for being here. You are listening to TSK. Tonight's topic is work. Okay, so where do we stand in terms of work? What is our relationship, our current relationship to the workplace? What are some defining features of our relationship to work, to our jobs? So this discussion, this research brought me to one study in particular, and no matter where I ventured off, it seemed as though this one caught my attention and I ended up back here. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight, and that is the Gallup poll. And the Gallup has been doing surveys about business, about workers, their relationship to what they do, all different kinds of research. And they've been doing this engagement surveys since about 2000. What this engagement survey is, is to figure out what percentage of the working world in roughly 200 countries they give this survey to. And out of those 200 countries, the working world, apparently close to between, let's just say 85 to 90%. And these numbers have stayed generally the same since 2000 when they started doing this research. Roughly 85 to 90% of the working world is not engaged in the work that they do. So this means essentially that they're zoned out, that they sleepwalk through their work. They're not invested in what they're doing, in the work that they're doing, and they're giving just enough, essentially, to get by, to get the paycheck. So 90%, roughly. So this number really rocked my world and really has just kept resonating in my mind. How is this possible that 9 out of 10 people on the planet, for what they do for a good portion of their lives, they have no sense of investment in? Only 1 out of 10 people is interested or committed or feels that they're giving or cares about what they're doing. So the numbers here vary from country to country, of course. We can go in a little bit into detail here. We have Japan at 94%, kind of on one side of the scale. And this is becoming such an issue for Japan and the Japanese people that there's suicides, there's work-related incidents, so much so that the government has had to intervene in a number of cases. So, wow, right? So this is not, this is a huge problem for everyone, but for the Japanese and looking at European countries, not so much better, which kind of took me by surprise. So France is in at 91% disengaged. Germany at 85%, so better, doing better. So it's an interesting element of this conversation that is often taking place about work, because we often talk about, especially in relationship to the U.S., European countries with their days off and so vacation time and how many days they work. And don't get me wrong, we can talk all night about that and the social net. But it is interesting that this notion of engagement doesn't come up because the US is doing twice as well. Twice as many people in the US are engaged with what they're doing than in Germany. So that's an aspect of that conversation that should be mentioned, but is not widely talked about, I would think, at least not in my circles. So the US coming in at 30%, so doing significantly better, but still 70% of people not interested. So the question arises, okay, so wow, this is not looking too good. What does this say? What is going on here? Is it because we've moved into tech? So there's all these robotic jobs, but then again, we're out of the Industrial Revolution. So is it that much worse? Is it, so all these questions, like, why is it? Has it always been this way? So the answer, I think, lies in the survey itself, or at least I've found something illuminating about the survey. So they don't ask people whether or not they are engaged with their work or whether or not they like their work. They ask people. They give people 12 statements, and people agree or disagree. And those 12 statements are things such as, I have a best friend at work was one. I am recognized for the work that I do. Things like this. And what they found, the reason why I mention this is because what they found, which is really blowing my mind right now, is that it was not, this 90% was not because people were hating the actual work they were doing. The number one reason why people were disengaged was because of their relationship to their bosses. What? The management. So I only noticed one article that really got to the heart of this. What does this mean? The number one reason why we're hating our jobs, why we're sleepwalking through a good portion of our lives, is because of the management? But as this sunk in, it made more and more sense to me, and that is, it's the dehumanization. It's the relational part of modern work that has us down. It's the fact that we know that we're replaceable. It's the fact that we know it doesn't matter whether we're there or whether we're not there. We instinctively need to be seen, need to be known. And it makes sense then in the place where we spend so much of our time, the fact that we're giving of our lives, but know that a robot could do our job, or that they'd want, even in a lot of cases, a robot to do our job, is causing people in Japan to jump ship, it's causing, that's my opinion, that's what I get from this. And what's really interesting is that the Gallup and most of these articles are coming from the business side of things, or I should say a lot of the articles are coming from the business side of things. And the reason that they're concerned is not because people are unhappy. It is because the productivity goes so down. It decreases so much when people are not engaged with what they're doing. So businesses have a huge stake in this. And it's funny, I find it funny because I didn't realize this. And I definitely didn't recognize this word engagement. And at my previous job, I can now look and say, wow, they were up in arms about this. they were passing out these engagement surveys like crazy. They were doing these meetings with general managers. They were really trying to get people to be invested in the brand, in the work they were doing. And now I understand why. The irony to it is that it wasn't working. I saw this with my own eyes. People didn't buy into it. It wasn't helping. So these numbers were super low, their approval numbers, and they kept taking all this action, but it never proved any results, or it didn't result in anything. And I guess the reason why I thought it was funny is because you can't fake caring about people. Think what you will about people, their instincts of knowing whether or not it matters that they're there, or knowing whether or not they're cared about, it's instinctive. And so no matter what they did, it was disingenuous. And so, or at least in my case, not saying that all businesses are that way, but in my case, it was. And so they could work till they were blue in the face. It wasn't having any effect. So in conclusion, I just think it's interesting that this might be these businesses' curse. And because of that, it might just end up being humanity's gain. Thanks so much for listening. This was my discussion about work. This is Kimberly. TSK. Never far.